So the math behind going viral is something I saw consistently when I was working at TikTok, building advertising products and selling them to brands, was the organic side of the universe not keeping pace. A brand would post a video. They could get 800 views, next video 1,000 views, the one after 950. It was consistent and predictable. The CMO would look at those numbers and think, we need better content. Meanwhile, their competitor posts very similar quality content on the exact same platform. Gets 47 views, but the next 2.3 million. The one after that, 80 views. Same production value, same audience, wildly different outcomes, right? This isn't a creative problem necessarily. You can look at videos from brands that are very, very similar. This is a fundamental architecture problem. So these two brands, X and Y, aren't really playing the same game. They're operating on platforms with fundamentally different mathematical distributions. And most marketers don't know math and also have no idea which game they're actually playing. So today, I'm going to help map out the differences in the distribution that various algorithms use and directly to the two primary algorithm architectures that run most social and video platforms on the internet. I'm going to show you why social graph algorithms create normal or logarithmic distributions, but interest-based algorithms function on something called power laws. And what it means for your content strategy literally is the difference between success and failure. The practical implication for marketers, once you understand which distribution curve you're playing with, you really can stop fighting the math and start aligning with it and exploiting it. So there are two main different kinds of algorithms running on the internet today. And I say that in a very oversimplistic fashion. But from YouTube to TikTok to Instagram, both platforms use a version of both of these algorithms for different products. So the two primary kinds are a social graph. Think of it very similarly to how olden days Facebook and MySpace used to work. You would see content and distribution based on your social connections. Your followers would generally get your content first. Your reach would then expand through them sharing it, engaging, and commenting. And your past performance is predictable. Your past performance is predictive of your future reach and growth. It rewards consistent creation to get consistent results. Now, fundamentally, this last point doesn't change. The consistency is required with an interest-based graph as well, but the results function differently. So, in an interest-based graph, think of this like TikTok or Reels or Shorts on YouTube. Distribution here is based on content performance and engagement. Almost always, strangers see your content first, not your followers. Your reach expands through algorithmic pools, and your past performance is somewhat indicative, but largely irrelevant. And any video can explode. There's really no picking which video is going to be the one to explode. So here again, consistency. Consistent creators do get the outsized results, but the consistency of those results can be a bit mixed. Generally, here's what people miss. These are not just different distribution mechanisms, but they create different mathematical outcomes too. So social graph algorithms really do very well to create normal distribution. And so here, with a social algorithm, your reach is determined by additive factors. Your total follower count, plus their engagement rate, plus their share rate, plus their network effect, and many independent factors combining additively. That is the literal mathematical definition of what creates a bell curve. The result? Most of your content clusters around an average number of views. Sometimes you're slightly above, sometimes you're slightly below. Extreme outliers are rare. You can predict your next video's performance generally within a reasonable range. Interest-based algorithms generally function on power laws. Why? Because reach is determined by multiplication factors and preferential attachment. Good performance in algorithm pool 1 multiplies your access to pool 2. Good performance there multiplies your access to pool 3. It's not addition, it's compounding the effects. The result, there's no meaningful average. The most consistent gets better odds, but this tiny fraction of videos ends up getting the vast majority of attention. Median outcomes are generally not great. The mean is dragged up by these extreme outliers that are statistically invisible in the planning. So, kind of looking here how these all combine. But if you look here, the differences between a social graph and an interest-based graph. The factors add up on a bell curve, on a power law, they're multiplying against each other. Predictability very, very high for bell curves, low for interest-based graphs. Your audience size and engagement rate matter most on an interest-based graph, the first 7 seconds of a video. The follower value depends on the product you're using, but generally higher on social-based algorithms, lower on the other side of in terms of predicting virality, follower count doesn't matter at all for interest-based algorithms. It has impacts on other sides. Track record volume, it breaks out differently. But in a normal distribution, the goal is consistency. Cluster your results around a high average. Very similar. You'll see this on TikTok, kind of clusters of videos around a topic or to build that sort of domain authority, as Google likes to call it. In normal distributions, the goal is really consistency, right? You want to cluster your results around a higher average. In a power law, you need persistence. And so you're still making videos every day, but the goal is to continue to create enough options for the inevitable outlier to hit. And this is kind of where the platforms in there fall on the spectrum here, right? So TikTok, they're 90% interest-based graph on the For You page. It's almost pure interest. Followers matter a little bit, not a ton. Every video competes against strangers for the For You page. YouTube Shorts, probably 75% interest first, but your subscriber signals and your long form definitely involves to drive a baseline. It's kind of a hybrid power law here. It's also why you don't see quite the same level of virality in YouTube Shorts that you'll see on other programs. I'm looking at Instagram Reels, it can be split, but the Explore side and the feed on social kind of are a bit split there. But it is a true hybrid where you're really playing both games simultaneously. And so the Explore side of the world really can absolutely drive that viral impact, and you get the benefit of your feed to kind of give you that consistency you're looking for, more of a bell curve. On other platforms, LinkedIn, they're working on it, but they're really socially graphed right now. Your network does see everything. Interest-based graphs really only kick in through crazy high engagement there. And so normal distribution really with occasional outliers based on effectively what is kind of, I would call it waterfall effects from kind of hitting thresholds of engagement on videos there for LinkedIn. And so what does this mean for brands, right? And publishers? So overall, on interest-based, on the platforms that run interest-based algorithms primarily, there's a model from physics that really perfectly explains why some creators explode while others stagnate. And weirdly, it comes from the math explaining forest fires. So if you imagine this grid where trees go randomly over time, like they do in a fire, and occasionally lightning strikes, when it hits a tree, fire spreads to the adjacent trees, and to their adjacent trees, and so on. The size of the fire really doesn't have anything to do with the lightning strike. Every bolt, largely identical. What determines whether you get a small brush fire or a mega fire is the density of the forest at the moment and the place of the impact. And so how does this translate into a content strategy? Well, your video library is effectively the forest. Each video is kind of its own tree. The density is kind of how comprehensible and interconnected that content is, from long form, both horizontal, long and short form, and vertical short form, or long form if you do this as well. But do you also have domain authority around content and shared concepts? Do you have the proper pathways for algorithms to be able to serve this content to viewers, for them to go deeper? Algorithm distribution is the lightning strike, right? You don't control when it happens. You're not able to pick which video goes viral. The algorithm is constantly testing and semi-randomly against new audience pools. You can't engineer which video goes viral. The viral spread, the fire. So once this lightning bolt hits and the video performs, that signal propagates to more algorithmic pools to suggested videos, your entire catalog. So the fire spreads through those connected trees. So if you have a super sparse fire, lightning strikes and burns out 1, 2, 3 trees, right? In a dense forest, that exact same strike could trigger a massive cascading fire. The difference isn't the lightning bolt. It's how the trees are arranged in the forest before the strike happens. And so this explains something that confused so many of the brands and advertisers that I've worked with across TikTok, Instagram, and other platforms. Why does identical quality content perform differently for different creators? A creator with 500 videos in a coherent niche has built an effective digital forest. When one video pops, viewers explore. They watch another and another. Session time increases. The algorithm rewards with more distribution. The fire continues to spread. And a brand with 12 disconnected videos has planted isolated trees all across the desert. The lightning strikes one of them. There's nothing around it to actually spread. The viral moment, it dies. There's no cascading effect. So there's another model that applies here very, very well. It's called the sand table. Effectively, you drop grains on one by one. Most settle quietly, but as the piles build up, they reach a critical state where any single grain could trigger the avalanche. Kind of to help visualize it, imagine them stacking vertically, right? When you get to 4 grains of sand, they fall over and they all trigger onto the ones around them. So you can't predict what's going to cause the avalanche. You can only keep building up the pile. Each video is a grain. Most do nothing. Occasionally, one will trigger a cascade. The math guarantees this will happen eventually, but it just can't tell you when it will occur. So the implication here is really try to stop engineering the viral video. You need to start building a system that's primed for when the conditions align to drive the growth. And because it's social media, let's not forget, you can also attach to somebody else's fire. So if the algorithm is lightning and virality is the fire, there's a strategy that so many brands and creators overlook. You don't need to start your own damn fire. You can just steal somebody else's. This is commonly known as trendjacking. And when you understand kind of how the physics work, you realize it's not creative laziness, it's strategic positioning. And so if you think about it, how it works mechanically is when something begins to trend on an interest graph algorithm, the algorithm has already identified a cluster of engaged users. It's already seeking more content to fill those interest signals. So there's already a fire burning. They're just looking for more trees to fuel it. By creating both a content repurposing and an overall content strategy that align with how trending content, with trending content formats and sounds, you're effectively both planting you're planting a tree on the edge of an existing fire. You don't even need your own lightning strike. The fire's already spreading toward you. And so if you think about it, it's not chasing virality. You're positioning yourself in the path of a potential cascade. So you're not starting a fire. You're just making yourself real flammable so when the moment hits, you can also catch. And so if you think about it from an attachment standpoint, number one, sound trends. Highest signal strength on TikTok. Trending sounds, using a trending sound immediately puts you in the same content pool. Your video inherits the momentum from the engagement on that trend. Number two, format trends, template formats. The algorithm can pattern match these, right? POV videos, of course, for branding videos, the of course series, specific editing styles. These also get algorithmically grouped together in a pool. Topical trends, current events, cultural moments, industry news, broader than sound and format, but it creates algorithmic clustering. One of the big ones for brands here is celebrity endorsements. Reposting those endorsements, recutting and reposting those endorsements when that celebrity is trending is an absolutely surefire way to drive a much greater amount of algorithmic fuel to that video. And the fourth, duets and stitches. This is a must for direct attachment. This is, replying, stitching, duetting. You're literally placing your content adjacent to content that's already on fire. The algorithm loves to serve them back to back because they're already pre-warmed. And so really your strategic calculus for trendjacking, you're trading originality for a distribution problem. Your content, of course, is going to be listed less differentiated, but way more likely to get that initial traction. So think about it. For brands with small forests or limited awareness, this can be the fastest path to kind of rapidly increasing awareness and to more rapidly build your forest as well, right? If you're low on content, this can be an easy way to do that. But if your baseline probability, right, call it, is a 1/10 of 1% chance of virality per video, and the trending content has a 2% strike probability. Trendjacking effectively gives you 20 times the odds. Even if the fire is smaller than when you start the trend, you dramatically increase your visibility by catching it. And so, kind of as you think about it, when to trendjack versus when to go original. So like early stage, much easier to trendjack. You need density fast. You're never going to make enough content to feed the algorithm. And so each trend allows you to A, stay current without thinking about it, and it builds your library and it trains the algorithm on A, the fact that your videos engage at a higher rate because you're effectively tracking trends, and B, the audience that engage with you on those trends. As you start to scale, you want to mix in your own original concepts in a growth phase. But using these trends to expand your reach and original content then to differentiate becomes a super scalable methodology. Once you're at scale, if you're a legacy publisher, if you're lucky enough to be Mr. Beast or the Veritasium crew, both very good channels, you have a separate problem. Now you're towing a lot of anchors. At scale, you need to worry about library management and kind of backwards looking technologies. And this is a whole separate area that folks don't do to effectively trendjack or put their content in front of the largest audience here. But effectively, the best trendjackers don't just copy, right? They adapt. So it's taking a trending format and reframing it through your lens or unique angle you have as a brand. And so you get to catch the fire, but you burn it in a different color is kind of the easiest way to think about it than that original content. Now, when we get into tactics, often I don't get super deep into the weeds on tactics, but in your forest, to keep the analogy going, you're gonna need some ways to help drive up the probability of lightning hitting your forest. Different platforms effectively act like different lightning rods. Understanding their architecture and their algorithms effectively change everything and help you better develop a platform-specific strategy. A lightning rod's purpose here, really, is to increase the probability of a strike. Taller rod, more strikes, right? Super simple. But there's a critical distinction here. You're getting a lightning rod. If it's for your house, you want it to be grounded. If it's growing in your content forest, you want it to be ungrounded. And I'm going to go over how you can make sure you build it the right way. So, a grounded rod, right? This is like the one you have on your house, channels the energy predictably into the earth. Strike happens, energy flows through known pathways, outcome is controlled. Everything is very simple. An ungrounded rod attracts strikes, but it can't control where the energy goes, right? You have a high strike probability and a chaotic kind of outcome. This is what happens a lot of times in short form vertical content. So if you think about TikTok, they're the tallest ungrounded rod right now. The For You page tests everyone's content against strangers constantly. Lightning strikes are frequent, but the energy is completely uncontrolled. Followers, track record, brand equity provide no real grounding here, right? Every video lives and dies against other strangers in that first test pool. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got like Meta. Well, I would say Facebook, traditional Facebook. They're your most grounded rod. They're the strikes are super rare, but when something catches, the energy, you know where it's going to go, right? It flows predictably through your network. So way less upside, way more control. And so effectively what you want to think about here is on ungrounded platforms, the forest density, your video density matters even more when that lightning strikes. And it will strike. You need the infrastructure to spread the fire. On grounded platforms where you're farming a garden, right? Different game entirely. You need to divert that energy away and control it. And really, the strategic implication here is that you need to match your platform mix to your strategic needs. If you need rapid growth and you can handle variance, you need to prioritize those high discovery platforms, Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. If you need predictable returns to help build and justify a budget, you need to wait toward the more grounded platforms like Meta, Instagram, even LinkedIn. Most brands need to run a portfolio approach here. Ungrounded platforms for growth, grounded platforms for stability and dependability. The ratio kind of breaks out based on your risk tolerance and the growth stage of your company. So, how do you actually build the forest? 3 types of content, each serving different functions, right, within the system. And so when you take this 3-layered approach, it aligns very closely to what Meta's Andromeda product is now doing for ads. Persona, desire, and awareness. So at the top, we have to drive awareness, right? And so this is the discovery phase. We need as much, when lightning strikes, we want to drive as much wide awareness as is humanly possible. And so when we're building this content for discovery, we want to, nothing assumed, right? Clear value props in the first half to 3 seconds. Front load your hooks. You need to stop scroll, right? And we do that through front loaded hooks. Broadly resonant topics and trends. Keep it high level, especially in your short form content. It needs to be approachable and easily digestible. Also, pattern interruption, change, do something unexpected. It will stop that scroll additionally. And then on top of this, you kind of have a complete standalone volume, right? Because this is not dependent on followers, you can get outside of your current boxes. And so your benchmark here for these platforms, 80+% of the views need to be coming from non-followers. Anywhere like this is trendjacking territory. Sounds, formats, timely topics, these fit into this box easily. Number 2, bridge content. These are your fire spreaders, right? These link your broader library to, or your short form to your broader library and back to your longer form content. So this needs explicit value props, right? Here's what you get by following. Demonstrated depth beyond that single video and the trick in it. You want to create curiosity loops to other content and pin your top bridge content to catch any profile viewers. And so here with the bridge content, you want to have a benchmark somewhere in that 3 to 6% conversion of viewer to follower, way higher than pure discovery. And it's going to vary a lot by platform, but content wise, you at least have a benchmark to have there. And then finally, your forest floor, your retention content. This is all the underbreath. Your retention content is effectively the forest floor, the lush, dense underbrush that makes your forest an actual forest, right? This both rewards and informs existing followers, but also gives them a reason to share your content. Assume context, callbacks, side references, keeping the conversation going. This rewards those people's loyalty with content depth, right? This is where series-based content, if you look at channels like The Ravens, they do an excellent job here of series-based content that builds fan investment. Brands can do this too a lot of times with behind the scenes, or if you look at the life at GSW, they do a great job of showing that kind of behind the scenes everyday life that really locks folks in for a longer period. And this is where to lean into more of those community features. Comments, Q&A, collaboration, all layers in beautifully. And your benchmark here is you want 40% of your engagement overall from followers. So way higher save and share rate than discovery. And so I'll kind of put it up, the content mix here by company stage. But really to break it out, for early stage companies, you should be looking at 70% discovery, 10% bridge content, and 20% retention. You want to maximize your lightning strike surface area, right? Stretch that funnel as wide as possible at the top. Be heavier on trendjacking. It's easier. You don't have to put as much thought into it, and it helps you build up that density fast. In your growth stage, right, this is that 10 to 100K. This is where we flip. We go to 50% discovery content, 15% bridge, 30 to 35% retention. So you need to balance the expansion with the depth. The expansion will come quickly. Being a mile wide and an inch deep doesn't do you any good. We need to add additional depth, but we can mix in our trends with the original content, and then at scale. Boy, your forest is starting to generate its own fires. This is really where we start to get into much heavier on the retention side of things. And we focus on things like library management and really kind of algorithmically setting of content. Two brands, same content quality, same platform, but wildly different outcomes. Now you understand why, though. These social graphs create this very nice normal distribution. Consistency wins out. Building audience, serve them reliably and consistently, and you will see compounding benefits steadily over time. On these interest-based platforms, though, these end up creating these power laws that can be exploited. Here, persistence wins. Slightly different than consistency, but persistence wins. You need to build your force first. You need to be consistently adding to your domain authority in certain kind of pools and clusters. And then as you build, you set up for the cascade. So really the huge mistake that brands here is treating both the same or claiming to not understand one or the other. The opportunity is exploiting each for what it actually is and how it works, right? You can't engineer which video goes viral. but you can build a system that's primed to catch fire when lightning strikes. And so if you effectively build out your forest, position it near other existing fires, and wait, eventually the math will do its work. So what you can control, the forest density, how many videos, how well are they interconnected? Tree positioning, discovery content way up high, right? Your highest engagement, retention content needs to go deeper, and it's in kind of in your more of the B sides, but really understanding those discovery funnels and what keywords are driving users to your page helps with that positioning. Trendjacking, it's done terribly most of the time, but when done effectively, it can effectively move your forest near another existing fire and pull in some of that pull a number of those people into your content libraries and allow them to investigate. And then here, the platform portfolio. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram are all effectively free television stations. Your content should be published on all three as they have different audiences. And so hopefully, I don't think it'll end the phone calls that I have to have with, so how do we go viral? But instead, how do we build a framework that allows us to go viral when the time is right? That lightning will come. You just have to make sure you're ready. Thank you very much. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out.